Back to week 3 of our course Boltzmann Law, Physics to Computing. This is the 5th and last lecture for this week. Now, as you know, in week 2 we had these two ways of approaching these probabilistic problems, the Boltzmann law and then there's the sampling method. And this week we introduced this transition matrix method, or the W matrix method, where you could find the stationary distribution by looking for the eigenvectors with eigenvalue equal to 1. And in lectures 2 and 3, we looked at Boltzmann networks, and we showed how all three of these methods agree very well. See? And we then went on to talk about Bayesian networks. And in this context, for Boltzmann networks, we noted that simultaneous updating doesn't work, but sequential updating works, and the sequence of updating is irrelevant. But for Bayesian networks, we saw that the sequence of updating is relevant. It has to go from parent to child. Of course, with Bayesian networks, we don't have Boltzmann theorem anymore, but we still have this Bayes theorem that we can compare to see which is correct. Now, in general, this W matrix method, you see, one of the important reasons I am spending so much time on it is because it gives you a deeper understanding of how this whole sampling technique works. But from a practical sense, though, you could say that, well, you know, the Boltzmann needed a 2 to the power n space to work on, which was unwieldy. But the W matrix, it is a 2 to the power n by 2 to the power n matrix. Remember, this is the transition matrix, which is 2 to the power n by 2 to the power n. I've been using small w for the weight matrix, which is n by n, right? The very different things. Now, question is that since it's such a huge unwieldy matrix, is it really useful? And as I said, one use is just understanding how sampling works. But the other use is it gives you a nice physical picture, which also provides this conceptual bridge to quantum computing. And that's what this lecture is about. It's based on this concept of Feynman paths. Okay. Now, as you remember, the way I introduced this W matrix is that it is the matrix which propagates a probability distribution function from one time point to the next. So, if we start out with some distribution which has a component along the Boltzmann distribution, but then has other components, then, and it could have, and what I'm doing here is expanding it in terms of the eigenvectors of W. And of course, there are many eigenvectors, so I could have many terms, but for illustrative purposes, I just wrote one of them. And then the point is that when W acts on this matrix, on this distribution, the P part of it stays P. Why? Because the Boltzmann distribution is a eigenvector with eigenvalue equal to 1. But the other eigenvectors have eigenvalues that are different from 1, and the point is their magnitude is always less than 1. So the A part becomes lambda A. But after many such operations, it becomes lambda to the power Ta, and since the magnitude of lambda is less than 1, when you raise it to a high power, it becomes negligible. And this property, of course, comes from this nature of the matrix, the fact that this is what you call a stochastic matrix whose columns add up to 1. So this is what we had discussed earlier. Now, for this lecture, though, I'd like to generalize this a little bit, and that is to note that firstly, you see the components of W, as we have seen, depends on this bias matrix and the weight matrix, X and W. This is a small w, of course. And these could, in principle, be changing with time. And so all these capital W's don't have to be the same. They could be different. You could be evolving it one by one, you know, with a slightly different bias, so it's like somewhat different weight matrix, and so on. And so going forwards, what I'll do is I'll put a superscript on top, 1, 2, up to T, where this is the transition matrix for step 1, this is the transition matrix for step 2, and so on until step t. Now, if I start with some initial state, what happens is the probability distribution function at time 1 is equal to this W1 times the initial distribution. Again, you go on to time 2 and you'll have a product of W1 and W2. And then in the end, after a long time t, you'd have multiplied it out by all these matrices one by one, W1, W2, all the way up to Wt. And so this I is the initial distribution, and then you have multiplied it out, and that's how you get the final probability distribution function. Okay. Now, just look at a numerical example. Supposing we start out in the 0, 0 state. So we are considering this 2-neuron system which has 4 configurations, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. So we are starting it out in the 0, 0 state, which means the initial distribution looks like 1, 0, 0, 0. Now, after you apply the W, and here I just took some numerical values corresponding to certain parameters that I used. It's from one of the examples we had discussed earlier. And you see that the distribution which was originally 100% 0, 0 has now spread out. So it's now 7% 0, 0, 20% 0, 1, 53% 1, 0, and 20% 1, 1. You apply again, the distribution has again changed, 12%, 33%, 40%, 15%. And of course, when you add them up, it's 100%, but it's a probability distribution. Okay. Now, after some time, after you've applied the same W a few times, in this problem I assumed it was the same W, you then get to this final, you get a stationary state, which is actually the Boltzmann distribution, which is 13% for 0, 0, and 1, 1, and a higher percentage, like 37% for 0, 1, and 1, 0 each. So that's how you would gradually evolve to this final state. So if you wanted to now know that, well, I started in 0, 0, but what is the probability that I'll end up in 0, 1? And the answer is, well, 37%. What is the probability I'll end up in 1, 1? Well, 13%. Right? So basically then, if you want to know the probability that you will be in state F, if you have started from I, then what you should do is kind of look at the F component. You see, you multiply this out, from the initial probability distribution, you multiply it out, and then you look at the component for what P is for the F component. So if you're 0, 1, you look at the second component, 1, 1, look at the fourth component. So that's this probability. Now, this is where we are going to make use of this rule of matrix multiplication. So what we had here was a string of matrices that were getting multiplied. But you see, there's this rule for matrix multiplication that when you say take A, B, 2 matrices, and you want to know the ij element of the product, it is like AIA, BAJ, and you have to sum over all A, right? This is the basic rule of matrix multiplication. So every time you multiply 2 matrices, you pick up a summation. So same here. You see, I want the final probability of I to F. And what I would have then is a string of these summations, one for each multiplication essentially. So you'd have A1 and then A2 and then A3, one after the other, and all up to AT minus 1. And all these multiplied, and then the index here will be I, that's the state you started from, initial state, and the last index will be F, that's the state you end up in. So this is a purely mathematical expansion of this matrix multiplication. but it gives you a reason I'm doing it is it gives you a very interesting way of viewing this whole sampling procedure and how we think about these things. So this is what you could call this Feynman path integral. I mean, this is a relatively simple special case of that you can write the overall probability as a sum over paths. That is this summation. Why is sum over paths? Well, you see, you could view these A1, A2, etc. as intermediate states. In the sense, you could think of it this way, that I started from I, and of course I have a probability of going to different states in the middle, but A1 is one such state. This could be 0 or 1. A2 is again, could be not 0 or 1, actually there's 4 possibilities, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0 and 1, 1. A2 is again, could be 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, etc. So if I put down a specific one, then I have a specific path. So this is one possible path from I to F. And that path has a certain probability, which is obtained by multiplying out the corresponding elements of your W matrix. But then there is, of course, many, many paths. Why? Because at each stage I've got 4 possibilities. So again, 4 possibilities here, 4 possibilities here, and so on. So as you go down the list, you have so many possibilities, so many paths, very large number of paths, and each one has a certain probability. And the overall probability that we observe is a sum of the probabilities over all those paths, you see. Now, how you elaborate, how you actually calculate them? Well, that's of course much more convenient to probably multiply out the matrices if you could have written them down. But then there's a huge matrices. So what we are really doing in our sampling methods is we are saying, look, doing this entire summation by multiplying matrices, that's impossible, that's too hard. So instead what we'll do is we'll try to find which ones are the paths with the highest probabilities and we'll add them up. And hopefully that will get us close enough to the correct answer. So these different algorithms for, I guess, sampling. I think we briefly talked about the Metropolis algorithm, and then we have been talking about Gibbs sampling. All of these, in the end, I think, are saying that, okay, I can't do this summation exactly, but I'll try to have an algorithm so that I pick out the ones with the highest probabilities. And then I'll sum them up. And hopefully we'll get close enough to the right answer. So that's how all this is working. And the one value of this way of thinking, of course, it could have some practical value in the sense of how you choose sampling algorithms, but that, I guess we have discussed different possibilities anyway. But one important conceptual value of this is how to connect to the quantum world. You see, in the quantum world, the point is that instead of probabilities, what you have is probability amplitudes, which are complex functions, and you often write them as this wave function, psi. And here we had these stochastic matrices. You see, the probabilities are all positive, and these matrices that describe the evolution, they are what you call stochastic matrices. All the elements are positive, and the columns add up to 1. By contrast, when you do quantum, you have complex elements, and these matrices are unitary matrices. They are complex matrices in general, and they are unitary in the sense they have this property that U dagger is equal to I, etc. Now, so there is differences, but you see formally looks very similar. It is as if, just as here you could think of this as a sum of the probabilities of all possible paths, here you have a sum of probability amplitudes of all possible paths. But of course, there's a very big difference, which is probabilities are always positive. And so when you add them up, they tend to converge relatively easily because it's all positive numbers that you're adding up. Here you're adding up complex numbers. I mean, actually, even if some of the numbers are negative, you can see that if you get a small number by adding and subtracting huge numbers, like if you had plus 100 and minus 99 and they give you 1, that's a harder number to get it right because you miss one one sample and you get a totally wrong answer. So these things don't converge easily, and that is where I guess where all the strength of quantum computing that is motivating this worldwide effort, that comes from the fact that believe that quantum bits or qubits can actually do these summations, quote unquote, instinctively. That is, they, as if they kind of sense all these complex numbers and add it up and behave accordingly. Whereas any classical system, in order to figure out all these cancellations, would actually have to sum many, many samples to get it right. See? And this is kind of what we'll be picking up next in the last 2 weeks of this course. But before you move on, you may want to look at this brief 5-minute review of what we have been doing the last 2 weeks. That's weeks 2 and 3 of the course. Thank you.